All right, sixth graders, let's go over example 2 using a dot plot, and this is part of chapter 9, section 1, Introduction to Statistics. Okay, the first problem here says, you weigh some mice and record the weights in grams in the table. Here's the table down here. Display the data in a dot plot. Identify any clusters, peaks, or gaps in the data. Okay, so again, here is the table with the weights of the mice that we weighed. And we're going to display the data on this, we call a dot plot. So what that looks like is we are going to record a dot on this graph here for each of the weights. Okay, so for example, our first weight is 20. So I'm going to put a dot at 20. Just going to center it there. Okay, and I'm just going to cross it out when I'm done. And then a dot at 18. Okay, dot at 28. $20. $19. I'm just crossing these out so I know that I used them already. And 19. So see how 19 and 20 both have two mice that weighed 19 grams and 20 grams. I'm just stacking them on top of each other. Okay. 20. All these dots are the same size to represent one mouse. 23. 21. 22. 21. 27. 20. 18. 21. All right, last row here, 20. 21. 19. 27. 'And last but not least, another 20. Okay, so we have now displayed our data in a dot plot. Okay, now we need to identify any clusters, peaks, or gaps in the data. Okay, so clusters. So when you think of a cluster, think of where are most of the dots on our dot plot mostly clustered around, or they're mostly clustered around one number. And I believe that is number 20. So clusters, I'm just going to put 20 grams because we're measuring in weight and in grams. Okay. Now the peaks So there might be one peak or more than one peak, but usually there's just one peak. So think of the peak of the mountain, so like the highest point. So where is the highest point on our dot plot? Well, again, at 20, right? The most mice weigh at 20, or the, 20 is our peak because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 mice weighed in at 20 grams. That's more than any other number, right? 21 is the next highest, 1, 2, 3, 4, but that's only 4 mice. So 20 would be our peak. And gaps, now this is where maybe we don't see any mice at all. So I see a gap between 23 and 27 because there's no mice that weighed in at 24, 25, or 26 grams. So between 23 and 27. Okay, so that's it for that one. Let's check out another problem. So this says the display shows the ages of people who are retired. Display the data in a dot plot, identify any clusters, peaks, or gaps in the data. So again, here's our data here, the ages of people who retired, and we're going to use this dot plot. So again, we're going to go ahead and plot these dots. So 60, and I'm going to cross it out after I use it, just so I know that it's done. 62, 58, 59. Again, all of my dots are the same size, and I do that just so that our data doesn't look, that's accurate, right? If we had some dots that are bigger, we might think there's a peak when there's not. 61, 56. Make sure it's on the line. 60. 60 again. I'm already starting to see a cluster and a peak around 60. We'll see if that keeps up here. 59. 64. 61. 58. 60. 59. Still seeing that peak around 60 here. Oh, and another 60. And 61. Okay, so we've now plotted all of the ages. So let's find the cluster. Remember, cluster is where most of the dots appear on our dot plot, and that is again at 60. Peaks, well, what's the highest? And again, that's 60. And gaps, let's see, do we have any gaps? Well, there's quite a few. So there's a gap between 56 and 58, right? There's nobody retired at age 57. So between 56 and 58. Here's another gap between 62 and 64. Oops. And, well, we're not going to call that a gap at the very end here because really our graph ends at 64. So there's really only two gaps here. So the gap between 56 and 58 and between 62 and 64. So whenever there's, not a dot at a number within your graph there. Okay. So we're going to go over one more together. I encourage you to pause the video and see if you can complete this one on your own, and then I'll go over here. So it says the display shows the weight of students in a class. Display the data in a dot plot. Identify any clusters, peaks, or gaps in the data. Okay, so here we go. Let's go ahead and use our dot plot here. So 83 is the first weight. Oh, and I should relabel this. This is not ages, it's weight. And it's in pounds. LBS stands for pounds. Okay. So we used 83. Let's go 85. 95. Another 95. 91. 101. 93. 92. 91. I'm seeing a couple peaks starting to form here at 91 and 95. We'll have to see if those stay a peak. 92. Oh, now another little peak. 94. 101. Seeing a few gaps in our numbers here too, so we'll see if those stay there. 94. 95. 100. 92. 84. 90. And then we have two 92s at the end. Okay, we have now graphed all of our weights in pounds. Okay, so now let's find our cluster. Well, most of the weight is between 90 and 95, and I would say the cluster's at 92. And that's our peak too, because that's our highest point. So peak is 92. And gaps, okay, where do we see no dots? Well, I see no dots between 85 and 90, so between 85 and 90. And I don't see any dots between 95 and 100. Okay, And that's it.